the public is going to be outraged about this. I don't think the left media will be able to cover this up any longer. They will have to change tune. So I think this is going to have a massive political impact, because people will not be voting for someone who has been engaging in this kind of election manipulation.
I'm curious to see how far it extends past the DNC, because obviously in 2016, Hillary Clinton...
No, 22 is out. 22 is out. I'll read it. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen, he's referring to himself, of course, of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem. ... So he's going to continue. So yeah, like everybody's saying, these are not hacked materials, right? This was not Russian or Ukrainian or anybody else or Chinese hacking the American, hacking Hunter Biden's laptop. This was literally him losing it in a coke binge, right? That's what happened.
Yeah, but also everyone needs to understand here, we're now getting a window into what happened at Twitter. The same thing will have happened at Facebook, Google, Apple, all the other big tech companies that engaged in censoring the story and engaged in literally manipulating an election. So this window that we're getting here is just the tip of the iceberg.
There will be a Senate hearing shortly where every big tech CEO head will be called into a Senate hearing. It'll happen.
23 is out. 23 is out. Yeah, I'll read it. The decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, with former head of legal policy and trust Vijaya Gadd playing a key role. So she was the one who made this call. She hid it from Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey had no idea anything was happening or that anything was wrong. He just assumed, like anybody else, that these were like hacked materials. That's why when he went to Congress, he was basically blindsided. He was like, the fuck, I had nothing to do with this, right? Like, that's what happened, and that's probably why Jack was not very happy with any of these guys that he had left in charge of the company. His mistake.
24
is out, yeah.
She was general counsel, by the way, of Twitter.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so 24. Quote, they just freelanced it, end quote, is how one former employee characterized the decision. Quote, hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. And that is why, when Jack Dorsey went to went to Congress, he said that we made a mistake, right? He literally said we made a mistake. And this is why. Now we know. So somebody fucked up there, and that somebody being Vijaya Gadd, she fucked up, and then no one in the company had the balls to actually do anything about it, so they kept it banned for the longest time.
Yeah, but it was a willful fuck up. So
correct.
He wanted this to stay off Twitter, and she did it even though she knew that it was totally unjustified because the material wasn't hacked.
Exactly. They suppressed it. They suppressed legitimate news, and so did all the other companies that did the same thing. It's not just Twitter here, right? Meta is not innocent of this. They did the same thing. YouTube did the same thing.
We're seeing exactly what happened with the freaking Russia dossier on Trump. It was fabricated. Certain people decided to push it within the FBI, Peter Strzok, which led to a massive, how many impeachment hearings against the seated president of the United States?
That's right.
It's treason.
And look at
what they've caused is the reverse effect.
You want to know who was responsible for that? It's Ned Price. Ned Price did it for Hillary Clinton, and that's where he is right now. He's in government.
Well, and I keep telling people, watch the SBF thing, because the William J. Clinton HIV and AIDS Foundation is centered around the Bahamas and Haiti and whatnot. That money went to that area for a specific reason, which is why you see Bill Clinton on stage with SBF.
Yep, that's right. It's all connected. Right, it's all connected. I mean, out 25 is out, so I'll read that. Number 25, you can see the confusion in the following lengthy exchange, which ends up including Gadd and former Trust and Safety Chief Yoel Roth. Comms official Trenton Kennedy writes, quote, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for marking this as unsafe. He's referring, of course, to the New York Post article. And so this is dated on 14th October 2020. This is the New York Post Hunter Biden laptop article, privileged and confidential. And then here's a quote. Our teams continue to investigate the origins of the material included in the reporting. And then Trenton Kennedy says, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for marking this as unsafe, and I think the best explainability argument for this externally would be that we're waiting to understand if this story is a result of hacked material. So this is the explanation he wants to give the public, right? How do we explain the fact that we just banned a website? He says, we'll face hard questions on this if we don't have some kind of solid reasoning for marking the link unsafe. Trenton Kennedy, and he emails this to Yoel Roth, our Summers on the Hunter Biden email laptop thing. So it's the same story, you know, obviously linking to the New York Post. She asked that question, do we censor anybody else?
So far, this seems like the most damning piece of evidence we've received specifically related to the Hunter Biden laptop story. I mean, here with the correspondence you just read there, Ian, it unequivocally shows that they deliberately covered this up, not as a means of, hey, we're just holding on until we find out more information to make sure of whether this is true or not. It deliberately shows them conspiring to cover up the story and explain it away in a public spin that is, they know is disingenuous, to say the least. What do you say?
I absolutely agree with that. That is spot on.
26.
Okay, anyone wants to read it? Yeah, go with it. Go ahead.
I gotta refresh. Like
26 here. I guess I'll take. By this point, quote, everyone knew this was fucked, end quote, said one former employee, but the response was essentially to err on the side of continuing to err. And I don't know if Ian or someone wants to take.
I can read it. Yeah, I can read this now. Yeah, Yoel Roth. This is him saying. Okay, this is his quote. The policy basis is hacked materials, though, as discussed, this is an emerging situation where the facts remain unclear. Given the severe risks here and lessons of 2016, we're erring on the side of including a warning and preventing this content from being amplified. So Yoel Roth was the one who made the call on this, right? Very interesting. Vijay Gad responds to him, and he says, what is the warning that will come up, question mark. Yoel Roth responds, he says to her, new. When you click the link, you'll see a generic unsafe URL messages, such as it references spam, malware, and violations of Twitter rules. Not ideal, but it's the only thing we have. And then Ian Plunkett responds, he says, whatever we do in comms, this, and he puts in parentheses, this will become a bias claim for Jack pre-hearing immediately. End quote. Let's make it clear, we're proactively but cautiously interpreting this through a lens of our hacked materials policy and allowing the link with a warning and significant reduction of spread. So they deliberately suppressed this. They knew what they were doing. They knew there would be a congressional hearing on this. They knew. These motherfuckers knew.
It's not just anymore a civil matter. This is criminal because that's voter suppression. And if bad actors use various methods of spreading disinformation about voting, then that's criminal. So
that's conspiracy to overthrow the United States government.
Exactly. So this thing is probably the biggest story since Watergate now.
It is.
When did Dorsey?
Someone got backbeat. If you all can mute, please. Whoever's not speaking.
Yeah. Somebody's eating popcorn, like Elon suggested.
Yes.
This is truly the biggest story since Watergate, but will the media cover it? Because the media conspired against the New York Post and Fox News. And
well, here's the beautiful thing about this, right?
Well, 27's out.
It's shining a light on all of these media organizations that went along with this. And if they...
Okay, 27 is out. Can I read that first? Okay. Former VP of Global Comms, Brendan Borman, asks, can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? And then there's this quote here. This is the screenshot. To Ian's point, can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? For example, as part of our approach to addressing potentially hacked materials, we are limiting visibility of related stories on Twitter while our investigation is ongoing. That's what he said. All right, please continue.
I'm just so surprised by this, how big the magnitude of this is, and how specific these communications are, and how they are perfect evidence for, election interference to a criminal degree. So this is going to go. There will be hearings about this. There court cases about this. The New York Post can use this to go after those who were responsible for censoring them. And frankly, all the media organizations that went along with it are exposed here as well. So this is going to be a very big deal.
Do you remember when Sidney Powell said we're going to unleash the Kraken? And funny enough, she's one of very few people who are able to proceed over military tribunals.
Well, she's a dumbass.
Whatever you think about her, that's fine. But this is
bigger than her, right?
I really quickly want to remind people in here, especially the media who's listening, that you can pull clips from this. It is recorded, so once we end the space, you'll be able to. Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, 28 is out. To which former Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker again seems to advise staying the non-course because caution is warranted. So this is a response from Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker, he's a lawyer, responding to the former VP of Comms, Brendan Bormans. What he wrote here is, so this is a privileged and confidential thing, so we haven't seen this anywhere else. He says, I support the conclusion that we need more facts to assess whether the materials were hacked. At this stage, however, it is reasonable for us to assume that they may have been and that caution is warranted. There are some facts that indicate that the materials may have been hacked, while there are others indicating that the computer was either abandoned or the owner consented to allow the repair shop to access it for at least some purposes. We simply need more information. So they knew that this thing wasn't hacked. Clearly, the New York Post wasn't lying about it not being hacked. It was provided to them legally. It was legally owned by the computer shop guy, right? It wasn't owned by Hunter Biden anymore. So, yeah. But they just went with the hack thing because, it's like, hey, if we all pretend that it's hacked, then it's no big deal, right? We can just do what we want.
And that's a criminal conspiracy right here because they all know it's not hacked and they're trying to create the cover for them doing these things.
Yep. They're all coming up with their little story.
As Joe Biden repeatedly said, what laptop?
29 is up. 29 is up. Yeah. He says, this is mmat. He says, a fundamental problem with tech companies and content moderation. Many people in charge of speech know or care little about speech and have to be told the basics by outsiders, to wit, and then we're waiting for number 30 here. So he's going to start, posting some other emails from different people, perhaps, about free speech and why it matters.
Who else helped alert Elon Musk to Yoel Roth and his previous tweets? Who else here can say that they helped let Elon know that he still had a rat inside of the building?
He was the guy talking to Elon.
Here's the thing. Elon is so smart. He knew this, and he kept him on board to get to all of this information and make sure that he feels like, Elon is friendly to him. And they also, on the other side, right, the intelligence community wanted to keep him in play and win Elon's trust and manipulate him. And see how smart he is. He used this guy for as long as he needed him, and then he fired him.
Yep.
I would encourage everybody to read 18 USC Chapter 115, which covers treason, sedition, and subversive activities. You're going to find exactly what's going to happen to some of these people because what we're seeing right here is unparalleled.
Maybe under a Republican Congress, not just yet.
Go ahead. No, just good evening, everybody. I just DM'd Miranda Devine a couple times to see if I can drag her into the room. She's the reporter who did the
30's up.
That story.
Miranda Devine, by the way, but 30's up. So I'll read. Can I read that first? Yeah. Okay. In one humorous exchange on day one, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna reached out to Gad to gently suggest she hop on the phone to talk about the backlash regarding speech. Khanna was the only Democratic official I could find in the files who expressed concern. And here's what he said to Vijay Gad. He said, generating a huge backlash on the Hill regarding speech. Happy to chat if you're up for it. Best, Ro, sent from my iPhone. So Ro Khanna hats off to him. He was the only one who actually, in the Democratic, group of all those people, was, concerned about free speech, whereas everybody else was more than happy to sweep this one under the carpet.
What's that meme of the office building where they throw the one person out the window for making sense?
That's him. That's literally him. Yeah. So good for him.
That's really him. What these correspondences show us, you guys, that keeps echoing through my mind as these keep coming forth, is these are people that weren't operating out of a sense of naivety or indecision. They were completely in touch with the magnitude of this thing and the factuality of it, and then deliberately went ahead with suppression.
Oh, there's another reply. It's not numbered, but he says, Gad replies quickly, immediately diving into the weeds of Twitter policy, unaware that Kana is more worried about the Bill of Rights. So here's what she says to him. Hi, Congressman Kana. Thank you for reaching out, and we appreciate the heads up. We put out a clarifying thread of the tweets earlier this evening to explain our policy around the posting of private information and linking directly to hacked materials. The press secretary's account was not permanently suspended. This is regarding Kayleigh McEnany being banned, right? So she says, we requested that she delete the tweet containing the material that is in violation of our rules, and her account is restricted until she complies. I'd be happy to jump on the phone if helpful. My team in DC, Jessica and Lauren, are copied here and are also available to discuss. Thanks, Vijaya. So she has no understanding of what he just asked her. He was like, are you sure you want to ban people because this is you're literally treading on their free speech? This is serious. And she's like, oh, no big deal. Like she just completely ignores what he just asked. She just completely misread him.
Your narration of that was perfect.
Yeah,
you're doing a great job, Ian, man. Thank you.
Yeah, and right after she sent that off, she went to the espresso bar and then the yoga room.
It's literally like they went to Simulate after working on the Matrix all day. These people, we have people in our government that have no clue what they're doing.
32 is out. Okay. Kana tries to reroute the conversation to the First Amendment. So he goes back to it. He replies back to her again. He says, mention of which is generally hard to find in the file. So no one else is talking about the First Amendment. Only this guy is, right? I'm sure, you'll find examples in the Trump administration, but he's the only Democrat. So he says, Ro Kana to Vijay Gat, and this is his email. Hope you're well, but this seems a violation of the First Amendment principles, he says. If there is a hack of classified information or other information that could expose a serious war crime and the New York Times were to publish it, I think the New York Times should have that right. A journalist should not be held accountable for the illegal actions of the source unless they're actively aided the hack. So to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding a presidential candidate, seems not in keeping of the principles of NYT versus Sullivan. That is a lawsuit in 1964, right, or 63, whichever year. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced that he didn't do anything wrong. But the story now has become more about the censorship than the relatively innocuous emails, and it's becoming a bigger deal than it would have been. It's also now leading to serious efforts to curtail Section 230, many of which would have been a mistake. I believe Twitter itself should curtail what it recommends or puts in trending news, and your policy against QAnon groups is all good. It's a hard balance. But in the heat of a presidential campaign, restricting dissemination, the dissemination of newspaper articles, even if the New York Post is far right, seems like it will invite more backlash than it will do good. Please keep this communication between us and Jack, and no need to CC the team or forward to them. Just wanted to offer my 2 cents. So it seems like he's the only one who actually cares about the fact that this is a free speech issue, right? They literally restricted a mainstream, a major publication. And, it doesn't matter what really, what politics they have. The fact is, as he said, if this is about a war crime somewhere and those materials are hacked, so fucking what, right? So what?
When did Jack Dorsey leave Twitter?
Why or when?
When?
After all of this.
It was last year, sometime mid last year, because I remember I was telling people that there was a lot of sock puppet CEOs that are going to be dropping off soon. Basically in touch with all the other CEOs that just left their jobs last year.
he wasn't in charge anymore. He was just there as a head, and he didn't like it. Like, he had lost control over his company. And I made fun of it for it, like, on the first day. When Elon took over, I don't think he liked that very much, because we got into a back and forth.
You guys saw when Dorsey tweeted at Elon and actually started supporting him in his endeavor for that?
Yep.
It was a while ago, but...
I think it's worth pointing out that I got a pretty good DM from a lawyer that I know, and he said that Rokana cares more about the backlash than he does about free speech. That is also I think that's a salient point to make, because, you know, he does mention that he cares more about the backlash in there. So, you know, free speech is one thing, but let's just say he's a smarter man than these guys are, right? Because he knew that this would backfire. Eventually, it would come back and bite them in the ass, and he was completely right. And 33 is out, so I'll read that now. Within a day, the head of public policy, Lauren Culbertson, receives a ghastly letter/report from Carl Szabo of the research firm NetChoice, which had already polled 12 members of Congress, 9 Republicans and 3 Democrats, from the House Judiciary Committee to Rep. Judy Chu's office. And so the email reads, Lauren, yesterday NetChoice's Chris Marchese met informally with 9 Republican and 3 Democratic House staffers to gather intel about Facebook and Twitter and a New York Post story. The staffers hail from the House Judiciary Committee to Rep. Judy Chu's office. So it looks like Congress didn't like what they did very much. The suppression of free speech, not very good.
I mean, from everything that I've seen so far, my summary is that the Democratic Party, in collusion with their media partners and big tech assets, have stolen the election by keeping this material from the public, and even worse, by calling it and labeling it misinformation. They've basically blamed the other side to try and take advantage from something that is illegitimate, which would have generated a lot of anger amongst voters and may have created the majority necessary to win. So this entire election, with this big tech collusion and the media collusion to shut down the story based on false pretenses and just completely wrong information, has led to the election results. So this is such a major moment in time.
It's like Joseph Goebbels would be the proudest person on the world right now if he was here, for the type of propaganda machine that the Democrats, the MSM, and these big tech companies have created. Thank God he's not here, because if he would have control of something like this back in 1934, the world wouldn't be here right now. It's absolutely insane. Right now.
Hey, Kim, do you think this gives enough probable cause to have the media agencies and also the social media companies investigated?
Absolutely, that will be the result of this, there's no question. And actually the service that Elon is doing to free speech right now, because you still see the efforts of governments around the world to use misinformation and disinformation to control what is on the social media. And with this release, all of that is going to be under question now, and people will be demanding more free speech and not less. And that is a really positive outcome here. So let's just wait and see what more comes out. But from what I've seen so far, this is probably the biggest moment for free speech.
Kim, what is your opinion on the possible implications that a U.S. political party has blamed other countries for misinformation and interfering in elections when it was themselves doing it?
Great question.
That is a great question. And we see this trend around the world, right? This is not just happening in the US. This is especially happening in the European Union as well. So, and there's always a lot of copying, right? So the US kind of leads the way, creates this new shift in human rights and in our rights, and then everywhere else around the world, they see, oh, this works. They are getting away with it. Let's do the same thing. It's really just a power struggle to remain in power, to
34 is out.
34 is out. I'll read that. So, NetChoice lets Twitter know a bloodbath awaits in upcoming Hill hearings. So that's Capitol Hill. With members saying it's a tipping point. Complaining tech has grown too big that they can't even regulate themselves, so government may need to intervene. Interesting. And here's the assessment here. High-level takeaway. Every Republican said this is a tipping point. It's just too much, in reference to the censorship. And both Democrats and Republicans were angry. So nobody liked what Twitter did here. Twitter pissed people off by, acting on the command of the Biden administration. So it's kind of interesting here, right? So a group of Democrats, at least those in the DNC, right, the DNC and the Biden administration, wanted to suppress this story so that, Biden wouldn't be affected by it. Whereas, not every Democrat was with this, obviously, but they used this as an opportunity to clamp down on big tech. And what does that mean? That means government oversights of big tech, no more Section 230, no more free speech online. It means that the government rules over everything, and the 35 is out. Go ahead. Szabo reports to Twitter that some Hill figures are characterizing the laptop story as tech's access Hollywood moment. So, when asked how bad the situation is, one staffer said, quote, it's big tech's access Hollywood moment, and it has no Hillary to hide behind. Others are more blunt. Quote, tech is screwed, and rightfully so.
Yeah, here's something quite interesting in all of this, right? You all remember what happened in the election that Trump won, where Hillary Clinton's emails came out, the DNC information came out, and it changed the election. So what the Democrats decided to do, if that ever happens again, we need to shut it down at all costs right at the beginning when this information comes out, because we cannot have the truth of the corruption of our candidate be out there and interfere with our chance to win. And just a reminder for those who have not read the information from the New York Post, there was clear evidence of Joe Biden benefiting from business deals that Hunter Biden had abroad in Ukraine, in China, and elsewhere, simply because Joe Biden was vice president at the time. So this was really damaging information. If it was in the public domain, if it was actually discussed properly in the media, if investigative journalism would have happened around it, Joe Biden would have never been elected president of the United States.
For people who don't understand security clearance process in the U.S. government, say this. Me, I was in aviation, had top secret. If my child, say, was of age and got caught doing illegal drugs and or prostitution or any of the one things that Hunter Biden has done, I would have lost my security clearance overnight within a split second.
It would have been much less time than overnight. It would have been near immediate, without question.
Yeah, but hey, 10% goes to big guy.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Elon Musk just tweeted out a couple minutes ago, simply, Ro Khanna is great.
Okay, 36 is out. Twitter files continued. The First Amendment isn't absolute. This is in large quotes. Szabo's letter contains chilling passages relaying Democratic lawmakers' attitudes. They want more moderation. And as for the Bill of Rights, it is, quote, not absolute. So it's a long email, so I'll read this out. This is an assessment of what people on the Hill want, at Capitol Hill. Democrats, meanwhile, complain that the companies are inept. They let conservatives muddy the water and make the Biden campaign look corrupt, even though Biden is innocent. They linked this to Hillary Clinton's email scandal. She did nothing wrong, but because the press wouldn't let the story go, it became a scandal so far out of proportion. In their mind, social media is doing the same thing. It doesn't moderate enough harmful content, so when it does, like it did yesterday, it becomes a story. If the companies moderated more, conservatives wouldn't even think to use social media for disinformation, misinformation, or otherwise. But the Democrats were in agreement. Social media needs to moderate more because they're corrupting democracy and making, quote, truth, end quote, relative. When pushed on how the government might insist on that, consistent with the First Amendment, for instance, they demurred. The First Amendment is not absolute. This is what the Democrats are thinking. They do not believe in the First Amendment. They don't believe in free speech, right? They want to shut you down.
They are admitting to not upholding their oath of office to protect the Constitution of the United States. And I'll say this, on Hillary Clinton's email scandal, handling any classified information over a non-serviced and authorized transfer, like DOD email or whatnot, is completely illegal and punishable by prison time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kind of dovetailing back to what Kim was saying earlier, alluding that this is kind of a tip of the iceberg, as big of a revelation as this is. I do think that's quite probable, particularly when we saw footage that was leaked and released from an emergency Google employee meeting just following the initial election of President Trump in 2016, in which basically a bunch of sentiments were being shared about, we can never let this happen ever again. We have to do whatever we have to do and curate things in such a manner that an election result like this will never happen again. I just thought that was just so extraordinary. And I can't help but have that echo through my mind as we're seeing the release of all this information come forth right now. What do you say, Ken?
Well, the biggest lesson here right now is that obviously politicians these days don't care about the people. They don't care about them making an educated decision when they're voting. By suppressing stuff like this, all they care about is power and what that power means to them when they get paid by the lobbyists that tell them what laws they need to make more money. So this is a completely corrupt system that needs to be shut down and replaced with something that gives people their rights back.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead, Spence.
Since we're going pretty far on the left here, I will just say that I think the worst thing to ever happen to this country was the signing of the Patriot Act. I think it opened the floodgates to all of this.
Yeah, I would really agree with that. That was another real big turning point, right? And back then, just goes to show how different the political paradigms in America have really kind of switched places, because the only U.S. senator to oppose the Patriot Act back then was Democrat Russ Feingold, who I thought did a fine job serving the people of Wisconsin personally during his tenure. But things have really changed since then. He was the only one to stand up against the Patriot Act.
By the way, just a reminder, for Elon to have such big balls to do this and to put everything that he's worked for so hard on the line, including his dreams to take people to Mars, this is all on the line. He's doing us such a big favor here right now. So kudos to him.
Absolutely. And I think that in, his vision, I don't think Mars is even possible unless he does this, right? It's all part of a larger plan, because you can't have the society that he envisions for space or humanity if we're under the thumb of this woke, progressive, fascist regime. They will literally suppress any sort of technological innovation. There will be no space. There will be no Neuralink or going anywhere, doing anything. Civilization itself will collapse with what they're doing. And so this is a necessary step.
Yeah, put on top of this, right, the complete undermining of freedom of speech, the mass surveillance programs that they have. So they have the information about everyone, 10 years of all communications in their massive spy clouds in Utah and elsewhere. And then on top of that, they plan to release a digital dollar controlled by the central banks. to basically have full financial control, to not just sanction countries, but sanction individuals if they do things that the government doesn't like. So we're really at a crucial moment in time here where we need to take this opportunity and point the finger at them and say, look, your plans are now so clear to us, we're not going along with it anymore, and we need to demand change. How exactly that's going to happen is the big question, but it needs to happen now.
And here's
I love
my
what
point.
Connie Elliott really quickly, she just DM'd me and said, everybody involved in getting out the truth behind the Hunter laptop has earned a Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I totally agree.
Yep. I'll make a point to the Patriot Act too. Before every major act that's signed that gives lawmakers power that supersede the people's vote, this happened before. This is just a repeat. We're living in a simulation. The Enabling Act of 1933 that gave the German cabinet, and more importantly, the chancellor, the power to enforce laws without involvement of the Reichstag, created the situation that we saw in Germany. Now, George Bush literally come out with the Patriot Act to give him, his friends, and certain people the power to basically do whatever they wanted to do when they wanted. And that's why we saw an increase in executive orders being signed from president to president since his term in office that granted him a 26-year war. So it's just crazy.
What's unfolding in front of our eyes right now is literally the largest criminal conspiracy in the history of the world.
Yep.
I agree.
Easily.
I really think there's going to be some very, very aggressive and not seen punishments coming up soon for certain individuals that it's going to shock the world. And there's going to be a mass hysteria and washover of people realizing there are consequences for what you do.
I hope so.
Currently.
Vijaya Gat needs to have a congressional hearing. I mean, what she did, maybe even a criminal hearing.
I think
I was going to say the same Congress that is grandfathered in and totally in on this. I mean, it's crazy. It's like you said earlier, a police officer interrogating a police officer.
Yep. And they're from the same team, the same squad. It's not even a different one. They're literally the same guys who said, hey, shoot that dude, and the dude shoots him. So it's terrible metaphor. Terrible metaphor.
Guys, don't you think right now would be just from a strategic standpoint, a very advantageous time for former President Trump to start tweeting again?
Yes. But he won't.
I mean, there's no better time than now, and even more important, like he should go out and do a press conference after this information has been fully released, because let's be fair. I mean, it doesn't matter if you like Trump or not. With this information out now, it's quite clear that the election was in fact stolen from him because of this cover-up of the Hunter Biden material that is also implicating his dad, and he needs to come out. The Republicans need to come out, and they all need to, tell us what they're going to do about this, because this can't continue. And it also can't continue within the Republican Party. They also have their own news channels. Fox is, of course, very much on the Republican side, and the Democrats have their news channels. Like, all of this needs to be depoliticized. They cannot weaponize the media anymore. They cannot weaponize government departments anymore. Like, all of that has to stop. They're so far beyond what they should be allowed to do, that it's not anymore in the service of the people. It's literally the selfish system that they have built that only benefits them. And, the people are literally used like stupid sheep to manipulate them with all these fake news and crazy censorship.
So Matt just tweeted, it's not part of the thread, 1 minute ago. An amazing subplot of the Twitter Hunter Biden laptop affair was how much was done without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, and how long it took for the situation to get unfucked, quote, unfucked, unquote, as one ex-employee put it, even after Dorsey jumped in. So Dorsey was basically essentially powerless.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, he's said this kind of a few times about how he didn't really have any control over the people working for him. He was just there as a figurehead.
Now you know why you see Mark Zuckerberg with this insane look. When I've seen soldiers that experience bad things overseas with PTSD, they're all very wide-eyed, very
got that look.
You see that on Zuckerberg because he's worried he's going to get killed.
Are we still watching for new tweets coming in that thread?
Yeah,
we're still watching. And I see that.
I really want to go to Tara. I don't know if it's Tara or Tara, but I would love to go to you and hear your experience and what happened to you. And then if you guys need to interrupt to read one of the tweets, that's great. Can you hear me, Tara?
Tara Reid, go ahead.
Yeah, your voice is like important because of what happened to you, what Joe did.
If you are speaking, unmute your mic. If not,
here we go. Yes. Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we were.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. I was having trouble unmuting.
Yes.
So I have a little insight to give you, and yes, my name is pronounced Tara, and thank you so much for
please like and
inviting
sub.
me to speak. I love that you're doing this spaces, and I love Kim, and I love Ian, and I love all you guys. So thank you. Elon Musk is a fucking hero. I'm so happy he's doing this, and he will always have my support now. Because he really put his whole, future where his mouth is, but more than his money. I mean, this is huge. So back when I tried to come forward about Joe Biden, I stepped forward in 1993 when it happened. I went through protocol, made a Senate report that is sealed in the University of Delaware, and Biden won't release the files. So I went public in 2019 when they were beating up Lucy Flores and the other 7 women that came forward about Biden's behavior. I was sexually assaulted by Biden, and I lost my career because of it. And I was threatened. And at the time, they said they would fucking destroy me. And they meant it. And it was very frightening as a 20-something-year-old when they told me that then. And then later in 2019 and 2020, when I came forward, I was immediately called a Russian asset. I was immediately dismissed. Then they just started doing hit articles. What I came to find out through Ryan Grimm at the Intercept's reporting and Katie Halper, and of course Matt Taibbi was behind the scenes with his reporting on other things, was that Time's Up was actually a catch and kill. Anita Dunn, the founder, works for Knickerbocker PR firm. That's Biden's campaign PR firm. So behind the scenes, the PR was working with Twitter and social media, suppressing these stories. You need to look at Anita Dunn, Hillary Rosen, and those people. Now, Time's Up has since been exposed, and it's been taken down. They had to resign because, remember, Anita Dunn became the senior White House advisor to Biden. When I went to Time's Up for help, not knowing all of this, right? I went because they were supposed to help women come forward. They didn't tell me that Anita Dunn was already on the payroll of Joe Biden. So she received, according to FEC records, $2.2 million to basically silence my story. So if you go to FEC records, you can find out more about how much they spent to silence Hunter Biden's story. But simultaneously, this was going on when they were silencing, the FBI was silencing the Hunter Biden thing, and all that New York Post, remember, got pulled down and all that happened. The DOJ pulled all my social media and everything about me under sealed warrants, including Twitter. And so Daily Caller just did an article today exposing the subpoena of Twitter. Twitter was subpoenaed. They spent months fighting it, apparently, and then spent thousands in court to just tell me that I was under a sealed subpoena, and that case is still sealed. So this is what Kim said. This is criminal. It's collusion. It's abuse of power. So there's Rose McGowan really educated me. As you know, she's a survivor of what Weinstein did. Where the public relations social media collide is through Commercial Artists Agency and Knickerbocker, which is Anita Dunn's PR firm. And those are the threads that are going to show you the money and going to expose this collusion with social media to suppress.
Hey, thank you so much for that, Tara.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, Can you give us your view now with this information being out? I haven't seen a further tweet in that thread, so we may be, breaching the end of that thread.
Yep.
From your view, what do you think this means?
I think this means that there's going to be congressional investigations by a hopefully Republican House. I think that's a done deal, and we're going to see a lot of this exposed and brought to the limelight, as it were, because a lot of attorney generals right now, like the one who exposed Tara Reid's the subpoena, they have been actively crusading against this, right? Against what the Biden administration is doing, suppressing free speech, suppressing the truth about all of this collusion that's been going on. So it's not just going to be this Twitter thread, right? Pay attention to the Daily Caller article. It's fantastic. Do read it. I retweeted it earlier. I'll retweet it again. It is worth following. It's got all the details in there, and it's just one part of this very, very big, very complex story. But that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to untangle it.
Yeah, that's right. And keep in mind, Elon tweeted earlier that there will be a Q&A. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that may still be coming. And I definitely want to ask a couple of questions because this is such an important moment in our time and an important moment for free speech. I would really like to hear from Elon about that.
I'm hoping we see Matt tweet here again in a little bit because I get the feeling that the Alphabet Boy showed up wherever he is. I hope Elon and them talked about putting Matt somewhere more anonymous as he was doing this because it just kind of quit. It's been a minute. So
I think one other thing that is also quite important to understand in this important moment in time is that this is not just Twitter. The other big tech companies have also betrayed us. And why did they do it?
Matt just tweeted again. Sorry to interrupt. Matt just tweeted again. It just says, while reviewing Gad's emails, I saw a familiar name, my own. Dorsey sent her a copy of my Substack article blasting the incident. Ian, do you want to take it from here in the image?
You can read it. I'm brushing my teeth.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I don't have my glasses with me.
Okay. It's an email forwarded with the Hunter Biden expose. Suppression is a bigger scandal than the actual story. Sent Saturday, 10/24/2020 from Jack. It's whited out. I'm wondering if it's Jack Dorsey to Vijaya Gaddy.
Vagina Yageti.
From Matt. Hunter Biden expose. With the Hunter Biden expose, suppression is the bigger. The image doesn't really say much. It's more or less just a receipt showing that Jack sent it to Vijaya.
He forwarded.
That was forwarded it from Matt. So Matt had sent this to them, to Jack, right?
Yeah.
To warn them.
Yeah. Oh, this is just extraordinary. This is. I mean, who better than Matt Taibbi to break this thing wide open today? I mean, what better vessel in journalism could there be than Matt Taibbi to break this thing open?
Just wait for the movie,
please throw
man.
me a like and a sub just for throwing my shit
I loved Spence's analogy of Elon Musk and the shot heard around the world for the second time. Elon Musket. That was so perfect.
I thought about you when I did it there.
By the way, don't expect too much from Hollywood. They are in the same camp with big tech and the mainstream media that is lying to us every day. But here's one thing that I would like you to think about. Look at the big tech companies that are all colluding in all of this. They are monopolies, That's what they get in return for this, that they are not being split up, that their monopolies are attacked. That's why Google can do whatever they want. That's why Apple can charge a 30% tax on everyone who has an app on the App Store. This is why Facebook isn't, broken up with their social media monopoly that they have as well. Like, this is what they get for that. And, to have that understanding that there is a quid pro quo, this is not just happening because these people vote Democrats. They are getting something in return for it. And, I hope this is a moment of awakening that we cannot trust these big tech companies and that we need to go after them and destroy their monopolies. It can't be that Amazon is destroying every mom and pop shop in the country because they are just completely destroying them and leaving no space for competition, right? There needs to be a middle class, and we can't just hand all business over to these tech giants that are clearly abusing their power to fool us.
And we covered this in multiple space calls in the past where we've identified that certain institutions are using the U.S. financial systems, market makers, and hedge funds to what they call naked short companies to death. Yep. So that Amazon and Google and Apple can come up and gobble up the competition at pennies on the dollar. It's insane that it's all connected, but we're seeing it now. And I will say this to what Kim said. Any server and any institution, tech institution, that took Parler off of its app store or its servers is probably implicated in what we're reading right now. They destroyed Parler.
I'm being reminded of back in June when President Biden was mocking Elon Musk over the SpaceX achievements. Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember when that was happening? And someone earlier, I think it was Kim, was saying that, Elon is known for standing up to bullies. And I think that's 100% what he's done here. And I don't think it was just for that reason. I think it was to stand by what he said he would do with Twitter, which is free speech. And I think, all of us being entitled to know the truth is very important in determining what happens in the future with our elections, especially.
I'm curious to know all the investors that decided to go in with Musk on purchasing Twitter. And I know very one unpopular person in particular donated $20 million to this investment, which was Ken Griffin. But it seems that there was enough people who knew what was going on that they were willing to risk their money to expose this. So this is huge.
Binance gave him $500 million.
Spence, I need to bounce. Tara, thanks for bringing me up. Kim, can I say one thing real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks. So being one of the former Alphabet boys not too long ago at DOJ, I'd like to get your guys' take on this. I'm hearing a lot about collusion with Twitter and the mainstream media. I don't think that's shocking anyone today, per se. We're not getting a document dump. There's going to be congressional committee hearings that are going to happen with the GOP in 2023. But we're talking First Amendment, right? The First Amendment is about government overreach. It's talking about state actors. I am curious/concerned that we have no government emails, besides one or two, no government names put out in this. And without having a link of Twitter to the government as a state actor, your First Amendment case is essentially going to fall on its face. I mean, there's disparate treatment, but if you're going to bring a First Amendment case, which I've been defending and bringing for over 15 years, if you're not going to make Twitter into a state actor, your case is going to go nowhere. And I have seen nothing tonight naming people, showing unredacted government emails, because Twitter was not doing this on its own. They were in contact with, I was there when they were in contact with DOJ. They were in contact with the feds. None of that was shown tonight.
Well, this is beyond a First Amendment case.
In the early ones, there are emails to the government. He redacted their names. So Twitter, Elon Musk has those people's names. Obviously, he can't reveal them because there may be a case ongoing in the future.
Well, and also of course, that's not completely correct, because the Biden team is mentioned in the messages. Also, the DNC is mentioned. Obviously,
I'm talking about names, Kim. Names.
He's not going to reveal the names publicly.
Obviously, they're not going to. Obviously, they're not going to put out the actual names just now.
Why is that obvious?
This is because that's up for the investigators who are going to look into this. So what he has done, he has produced now the environment for a proper investigation. And in that investigation, information will be demanded. Elon did not have to put out any specific names or emails here. There's enough information to justify the investigation, which will then reveal all the deep details.
There's enough to bring Jack Dorsey and Vijaya in to testify before Congress, and they can't lie now. because the information's out there on the internet, which is going to get them to expose the actors. And this is what we said at the beginning of the call. Finding the chain of command that went through to tell Twitter to do these things is going to lead back to the source.
Right. Correct. Right. There's a new tweet from Matt. He says, there are multiple instances in the files of Dorsey intervening to question suspensions and other moderation actions for accounts across the political spectrum. Sounds like Jack Dorsey's a good guy here.
Yeah, and I had a bad opinion about him during the suppression of everything that's going on. The same with Zuckerberg. And I really think these were two younger gentlemen who were put in a position of extraordinary power and money who have been taken advantage of by what is happening with these institutions and political parties, telling them and forcing them through a weaponized FBI, CIA, whatever you want to call it, to make these decisions. Now I'm sitting here wondering, how much does SBF know? This all comes out directly after the FTX blow
thanks,
up,
bro.
which I'm telling you, I'm speculating, but the Clintons are heavily involved in FTX and SBF, which is why they ended up in the Bahamas. This is...
It's big. And one thing that's worth pointing out is that while the government was, actively suppressing people in 2020, in 2021, they tried to introduce the Disinformation Governance Board once Biden took power. And that woman, she's no longer with us. She works for the British government now, doing the same thing. Imagine that. Okay, so she was going to be put in charge of the active suppression of so-called political disinformation, right, from any party, whether foreign or domestic. And thankfully, Jack Posobiec, right, he actually got to it. He's the one who named her, right, to my knowledge. And there's a reason why the Disinformation Governance Board is no longer a thing. And if it still is a thing, because I believe, and I think I understand that it still kind of is a thing, like you can still report people through a portal, like the government can report people that they want suppressed actively through a portal that's set up on Facebook, Twitter, and so on. So that's something that Elon's going to have to come down and talk about later on.
And it's funny you brought that up, Ian, because not even just a few nights ago, we were hosting the call on Tim Pool and Kanye West. And I'm not trying to say that Kanye is credible or anything one way or the other, but he was specifically talking about Harley Pasternak and how he was a Canadian defense military guy doing PSYOP missions on our celebrities, which we all know Hollywood was our first form of propaganda being pushed out into the American political system during these big campaigns, especially in 2016. Mm-hmm. So how many foreign actors are actually involved in manipulating our elections, and how many people in our government right now
it's Five Eyes
in with them?
It's basically Five Eyes. So what they do is, I'm sure Kim can speak to this, is they will have a foreign government spy on a domestic citizen and then get that information from that foreign government so that they don't have to spy on themselves technically, because every country has a kind of law that says that you can't spy on your own people, right? That's against the law. So especially the U.S. government. So they will have, say, the Canadian government or the British government or Australian government come in and do the spying for them and then feed them that information or just tell them where to go, where to look.
Yeah, so they are circumventing national law just by this method that you've just described. The U.S. is opening up all the communication channels to the British GCHQ. They then spy on all the communications of all the Americans, put it in a spy cloud that they share with the U.S. Spies.
He's gone now.
And therefore, they are still spying on all Americans, just using a third party in a different country that is closely allied with them. And by the way, the same thing happened in my case, where the New Zealand GCSB was spying on me, was feeding all that communication into the spy cloud so the U.S. could access it. And again, using this method to circumvent the law.
Mm-hmm. Just extraordinary. And what a watershed moment for Jack Dorsey, who kind of has been trying to get his side of the story out, pretty much saying in so many words that, hey, I wasn't complicit in the most egregious elements of what ended up happening here, and even going so far as to issue a couple straightforward apologies, right? Well, now we have a paper trail to prove that. So this is really a watershed moment for Jack Dorsey. And I'll just add this one last thing, because I do think it's notable. Both Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk, Gen Xers, I do think that I also think that's symbolic of perhaps a generational gap of values, a differentiation there, where here you have both Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey, Gen Xers, who seem to espouse and value freedom of speech, perhaps more so than the younger generations. Perhaps I'm overly generalizing. What do you say, Ian?
I think that's
just a second here. Just a second, as I moved up Sebastian Gorka, because I want to hear the point of view of a Republican about this revelation. Like, Sebastian, if you can please comment on what your feelings are about this.
It's getting impeach material, in my opinion. Well,
Sebastian, if you're speaking, please hit the unmute button on your mic.
Lower left.
Yep, bottom left. You might still be connecting, though.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, you're coming through.
All right, so I'll 30 seconds, just with one proviso, not a Republican, a conservative. I want to do the sanity check, and I want to be the second to my buddy Crypto Lawyer. I don't know why everybody's so excited. I just don't get it. Everybody needs to take a cold shower. We have not seen any evidence of a felony committed by
this is election
people
fraud,
in the
you
government.
dumbass.
If this is just a way to, get us excited before Christmas, it's great. But we need a paper trail, not whited out emails. We need a paper trail of the circumvention of the First Amendment, not the DNC in opposition, not somebody on a campaign asking their liberal buddies in Palo Alto. We need proof from Musk inside Twitter HQ. I'm sure he's got it, but this is a big nothing burger so far. The drip, drip, drip is smart. That's what we learned from Andrew Breitbart. But we need evidence of felonies. Crypto Lawyer is right. So that's my little sanity check for everybody. But I appreciate it.
Cough, cough, cough.
I'll be honest, what I appreciate the most of all of this is the privilege of being able to even talk about it. Because let's face it, just a month ago, we couldn't say half of the things we're saying on Twitter because we would have had our account suspended.
No, I agree. I give you that.
Yeah, the other thing, that I said earlier, Elon at this stage, together with Matt Taibbi, don't have to release any more specifics, because what they have shown is already by revealing some of these messages that clearly mention the Biden team, clearly mention the DNC, they open the door for an investigation. And I'm pretty sure this information that they didn't have to release will then be subject to the investigations in the House or in the Senate.
Well, here's what's interesting.
I can see the Texas AG, right? I mean, he's been pretty diligent about this. Missouri AG has also been pretty great. And of course, DeSantis' people, right? They are going to be jumping on this, and they're going to be using this against the Biden administration to take them down. Right?
But you need a prosecutor. You need a prosecutor with balls. The GOP is going to do this. The GOP in the House,
the GOP won't do it.
McCarthy is not going to do this. The DOJ is run by Lisa Monaco. Merrick Garland is a meat puppet. The DOJ will cover this up and will be shredding stuff tonight. And it's going to have to be a local sheriff, a local prosecutor, some crazy guy in Florida, some crazy guy in Texas, because it's not, I guarantee you right now, nothing is happening in the swamp. Nothing.
Well, and Ian just said, when I brought up Sidney Powell, you said she was, I forgot what you said about her, but she's crazy.
She's a freaking fruit bat.
She's crazy enough to actually prosecute.
She won't be the one we need, right? We need somebody who's actually in a position of power right now. And I'm looking at, DeSantis' AG, right? I'm looking at Texas' AG. I'm looking at Missouri's AG. They're already on the ball for this. They're already taking the DOJ and all these tech companies all to task for different issues, right? Over censorship of people who live in their states. And so this is one more thing they could add onto their case and actually make it the main part of their argument. I mean, keep in mind, these they get together and they can launch a massive case. Like all these different states can come together and say, hey, we're taking you guys apart. You know, we're going to take you to task. And this is going to be the states versus the establishment, right? This is not the DOJ that we're counting on. We're counting on these local AGs to do the job because that's what they're elected to do. And I can 100% guarantee you that they're paying attention either to this chat, they might be in here, their staffers are, I know that for a fact, or they're going to just be looking at Elon Musk's thread and they're going to be looking for advice from their own people, right? People
Here's
are going
my
to be
question.
asking them, calling them up.
Here's my question to everybody that's up here right now. Do you think there's enough probable cause posted already to warrant an investigation? And if they did an investigation, what are the chances that Musk is already hiding? Like Sebastian said, he already has the information. So if the
100%.
investigation falls
They've got to
flat,
prepare, right?
Yeah,
because he's ordered this a few weeks ago, so more than that, right? Longer than that. So he knows what's up. They have this stuff planned out, right? So there's probably a parcel of information, the same parcel that they gave to mmat, except it's going to be unredacted. It's going to have all this information in there. It's not going to have one journalist looking at it and deciding what to post. It's literally just all that information provided to the AGs, and they're going to decide what to do with it, right? It's a team, like massive teams of lawyers, entire state departments are going to be involved in this, or at least it could be. That's my wish.
So here's why I think no one needs to worry about this not being big enough, okay? Elon tweeted out 3 hours ago, we're double-checking some facts. So it means his legal advice was probably not to go all in with all of the information, and he would have received the advice that by putting out just the crucial bits that show this kind of collusion, that he doesn't have to release all of it because it will come up in the wash of these investigations anyway. So in a way, very smartly done, providing just enough information that there will be proper investigations, and then the information will be subpoenaed. They will have to provide full discovery about all the emails, and in that process everything comes out. So Elon didn't even have to take the risk to point the finger at individuals.
Yoel Roth is losing his mind right now.
Oh, I bet. I really quickly wanted to invite Mooch to the stage. Hi, Anthony. I don't know if you wanted to chime in. I just want to make sure you have the opportunity. Yes, please go for it, and then we'll go to Mooch.
So Yoel Roth, who is, as we all know, is the former global head of trust and safety, he is directly involved in all of this. He's losing his mind over Elon Musk releasing all the files showing the political censorship inside of the company. And this is what he posted on Mastodon, right? Mastodon's that terrible platform that they're using now. He said, publicly posting the names and identities of frontline employees involved in content moderation puts them in harm's way and is a fundamentally unacceptable thing to do. So he doesn't like the fact that he just got exposed. And the fact that his buddies, who are all involved in this collusion, right, to suppress free speech, to suppress political reporting by the New York Post and Fox News and others, he is upset that he has been exposed. So Twitter's employees, former employees, I should say, because Elon fired all of them, are quite upset about all of this.
Not Ligma.
Not Ligma, no, he's back there. Ligma and Johnson.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's feeling too bad for y'all right now. I mean,
no.
This is part of the consequences of essentially playing this significant a role, which equates to general election manipulation. I agree with what Kim was saying before. This story had such a potential consequence to it that it really could have had a high probability of producing a different outcome. It's just extraordinary that he even is rebutting with this level of hubris under the circumstances, in my opinion.
So this, I think, again, my question back to a certain part of our U.S. government and or potential political candidates blaming other countries for election interference and misinformation and basically, spy games. What are the global implications of this? How many times have they blamed Russia? And Russia hasn't been doing what they've claimed to do?
Hasn't been doing anything.
Why do you think
It's
Russia
huge.
fucking invaded the Ukraine?
And now we have the Ukraine conflict, which the Bidens are heavily invested in, and we've been sending hundreds of billions of dollars there nonstop, and everybody's going, what is going on? It's almost like a payout.
It's not like a payout. It is a payout.
No evidence for it, but feels like it.
Yeah, just extraordinary there. And I think that's a pretty interesting observation, because Russia has just kind of been the catch-all boogeyman for so much over the last several years. And
if I could say, as a person who, because I worked for Biden, as you know, in 1993, and when I came forward in 2019, the first thing that was said, not regarding the assault or what he did to me or, all of that, the first accusation was from Edward Isaac DeVere at The Atlantic and from the Biden campaign. They were faxing over to New York Times that I was a Russian agent, a Russian asset. And that's been the Democrats' go-to to switch and bait, to change the story, because the corruption is within. This is all connected. The Hunter Biden laptop, actually, one of the first people to get their hands on it was Chanel Rion of OAN. And she was practically, forbidden from coming into the White House. She lost her status at White House correspondent. They wouldn't let her in, to ask questions, things like that.
This is sick right here.
And I don't know what she's doing now, but she was one of the first reporters to try to get this story forward about the Hunter Biden laptop. And all I can tell you is this is going to expose a lot of the money laundering. And Kim, I've talked about this. The Ukraine, the proxy war we're fighting against Russia via Ukraine is the biggest money laundering scam in history. And this is all connected.
And that goes right back to FTX.
Yep.
I think they're still sorting out the links to that. And you saw the way the New York Times and all the puff pieces, he was on Good Morning America. Look what they did to Bernie Madoff. Look what they did to Martha Stewart. Why isn't this guy in jail? They're giving him press rounds.
Hey, welcome to stage, Anthony, as well. You want to chime in? And
thanks, Kim. If it's okay, I because I've been listening for a couple hours. I had to shut it off to pick up one of my kids. But just a couple things I want to say, because I'm looking at friends and people that are on different sides of the political spectrum than me or have different opinions, and so I'm comforted that we're all here, because I think the thing that we're all trying to do, whether we believe in each other's ideologies or political process, is trying to get to the truth, make the world better, etc. So I'm going to make 3 comments that I would like people to think about. Number one is the scene in Casablanca where Claude Rains walks into the casino, or walks into the bar and says, "Oh my God, I didn't realize there was gambling in here." Of course, he realized that it was a sardonic, very cynical statement made by the inspector, if you will. And so I don't think any of us are surprised that this type of behavior goes on behind the scenes. And I think we have to all recognize that. Second point that I want to make is I want to give kudos to Elon Musk, the people that have been on this stage, even people that sometimes I've been in fights with over the course of my life, because we are seeking the truth. And I applaud Elon Musk for what he's doing, but I want to caution everybody, because we're all looking for the truth, but we need way more decentralization in our lives. And I would implore the friends of Elon Musk to reach out to him and say, okay, you've got to build a system of people. You're doing it yourself. You've got very good judgment, but you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the information czar. You want to create a decentralization of authority at Twitter to expose more of this stuff, because I don't think you even want to put all that pressure on one person like Elon Musk. The third thing I will say is that this is a lot like the 60s and a lot like the early 70s, okay?